homies want to know.
Real homies want to know.
Real homies want to know.
So, y'all, we are at the end of American Heart Month, but look, that don't mean you stop taking care of your heart, all right? Now, today, we get a chance to hear the story of Brandon Allison, who is a licensed clinical mental health counselor, and he's going to be sharing his experience with heart disease and so much more. So let's get to it. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor in the state of North Carolina. I have been one for the last 5 years. Wow, that's moving. I have been for the last 5 years, and I'm a big mental health advocate in general. And I have been probably for the last 12 or 13 years of my career, just in terms of advocating not only for Black mental health and wellness, but also the education piece of us advocating for ourselves and being more aware of our needs, what our community has, doesn't have, and how to be more in tune with taking care of ourselves. So that's really pretty much me in a nutshell as far as what's important to me, and being sort of a agent, not only for just change, but I think being able to make our community more aware, Black men, Black women, our children, our families, this whole approach. We're all one big system. So I really try to educate people on that system and what we need to do to be more aware of the many layers of taking care of ourselves, pretty much.
Yeah, I like that. And I agree. I think that's very important. So I'm really glad that you're doing what you're doing out here. And thank you. You got an Instagram page. Let everybody know where they can find you and all the great information that you share.
I do. So I do have an Instagram page. It's at Brandon the Therapist, and I think there's a period between Brandon and the not the therapist part. So Brandon.the Therapist is where I post all of my content, specifically related to Black wellness. I'm gonna just be straightforward about that. It's about our community. It's about helping our people and shining light on those topics that don't get a lot of coverage, maybe as it relates specifically to people of color. So that's where I can be found, and I'm learning the game. It's kind of new to me in that regard of having a new page. So I'm learning, but I'm putting out some really exciting stuff and just trying to build really from the ground up, and hope people take it in, share it with their friends, their grandmothers, aunts, cousins, whomever. So.
You recently had, a situation that came up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. So I was 34 last year when I found this out, but I have heart disease, and I was not aware. I always seen it on like the Cheerios box. They have like the little heart in the corner, and I used to be like, oh yeah, American Heart Association, good group, that's what's up. I don't even like Cheerios. I just remember seeing that on the box or whatever. But at 34, I just kind of started to have some challenges. I noticed some mild symptoms, I would say, during high intense exercise that I was doing maybe last summer, which kind of led me to a series of doctor's appointments between, I would say, June of 2021 up until, I would say, August. So somewhere between, maybe about 3 months or so. And those series of appointments pretty much led them over a battery of tests and assessments and so forth to discover that I did have 2 blockages in a very important part of my heart, in excess of 80% in 2 different places. So that was a very interesting revelation, coming from someone who had no prior prerequisites, didn't really have high cholesterol levels consistently, also didn't really have any diabetes to speak of, high blood pressure, never have checked off any of those boxes. So I considered myself a pretty healthy, active person, and I'm 34, you know what I mean, at that time. So that diagnostic was definitely a hard pill to swallow, for sure, definitely.
Wow, yeah, I can imagine that was definitely a challenge. So, all right, you started seeing some changes, and it was like, it doesn't feel normal. So
Right.
To the doctor, how did all of that go? Like, how did you get to the diagnosis?
So initially, is I'm glad that you asked that part, because initially, I'm big on using my primary care physician. And I went initially to that appointment for the discomfort that I was feeling. And it was kind of written off, in a way, not totally, but written off as, oh, it's probably not that. You're too young. That's probably not a cause of concern. I think they did a real, I would say, intro, maybe EKG, just to see if there was any arrhythmias or any challenges in that regard from what they could assess. Nothing. Gave me an inhaler and said it's probably bronchial. You'll be fine. Try this and give us a call. And so I did that. I'm like, yeah, because that's what I wanted to be. It's bronchial. It's not heart related. I was never thinking anything of the sort, and continue to have that discomfort. And when I say discomfort, it was more like a small tightness in my chest during high intense exercise. And I just knew that wasn't normal. Like, that wasn't me. And so that led me to say, okay, I tried this inhaler. That didn't work because I'm still having this issue. So what's going on? And I was outside running one day, having some fun playing with my son, actually. And it just caught me like in mid stride. And I was like, okay, something's up. And so I reached back out to that same doctor and said, something's up. I need a referral to someone different, maybe a specialist, a cardiologist, something of the sort. And he was okay with that. And he did an emergency referral on his end because of what I was explaining to him. And they got me in much sooner. They originally had an appointment that might have been maybe scheduled for 3 or 4 months out, and they got me in within the next 2 weeks. And so from that appointment, they did a stress test. For anybody who's familiar with what that is, they basically push your heart rate up and increase your speed on a treadmill, right? And they increase that to see what's happening while they're reading your heart. What's it doing? What's it not doing? And I did not pass that. Which in that moment I was actually okay with. I kind of wanted them to see something was wrong, I guess, in that moment, so that it's not like what I'm explaining to you isn't accurate, or that you send me home again and say, oh, there's nothing going on, there's nothing wrong. And I didn't pass that, and that led them to do another assessment where they actually took images of my heart. That was a procedure I had to go through as well, for them to actually confirm that there were blockages in that place. And so when that happened, they actually had to decide, or actually again left it up to me. Once they before they did the last assessment, they said, well, you failed the stress test, but those aren't really 100% accurate. So if you want us to do another assessment, we will. And I was kind of like, so it's up to me? They were like, yeah, because we don't think that there's anything going on to that degree. Again, you're so young, that's probably not the case. And I said, no, actually, I do want that assessment. I do want you to confirm, give me peace of mind, right? That there's nothing, detrimental going on, or that I need to be further aware of. So they did that assessment per my request. And that's when the confirmation was made that actually you are that 1 in a million person who hit the lottery, and now you have heart disease. Oh, and by the way, you'll need double bypass surgery because of the location of where it's at.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is. It was a ton. Listen, I tell you something else, and I hope this makes the video. Yo, I cried. Like, I legit. So when they say brothers don't cry, Black men are not in touch with our emotions, I was very in touch with my emotions that day. There's no descriptive way to explain that. I was very overwhelmed with true emotion about what that meant for me in that age. Like, I can't explain the feeling that I was overcome with in that moment, that you're telling me that this is the best course of action to prolong my life. Yeah. That this is necessary for me. And then it was on the back end, most people don't even get to this part. Most people aren't alive to tell this side of the story because they ignore their symptoms, or they're misdiagnosed with something else. And because it was in excess of 80%, they were looking at me like, you're still here. Like, you're here. Not like in a bad way. They were just more like, wow, this is all that you experienced? And I'm like, yeah. And I told them even up until that week, I was still working out. Mm. I would charge that till I just pause, catch my breath, and then I get right back to it. Because like a lot of people in 2020, pandemic took my mojo too. I wasn't in the gym. Gyms weren't really the thing, and I wanted to get back active. And so I kept working out, you know what I mean? And so that was a lot to undertake, that they were almost in amazement that you're here to tell this story. Now, this is what we need to do. That you came into us on your own 2 feet, under your own willpower, explained these symptoms, and they were like, wow, your heart must really, really be strong. And I was like, it must be. And I'm thankful for that. So now y'all tell me what's next. And that's what they said.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you did mention the emotion part, because there is negative thing around men expressing their emotions. It
was grief. I don't know if I said that to you when we talked before. It was grief. I think I went through all the phases of grief, and not just, Kubler-Ross's 5 stages. It was just more grief in terms of acknowledging your life won't be the same as it has been the previous 33 years before today. You're not going to be the same person. This is a unexpected life event that you're getting ready to embark on. And it all hit me at the same time, that I won't be the same person. Being transparent, what if I don't live? What if that happens? Being scared about being that vulnerable during a procedure of that magnitude. I think heart surgery and brain surgery are like 1 and 2 in terms of significance of a procedure that they list as far as, pretty intense surgeries or what have you. And I was flooded with all of that. I'm not going to be the same. Will my heart work the same? Will I be able to work out anymore? Can I pick up my son, my daughter? Can I run with them? Like, what's going to happen to this life that I've cultivated to this point, to this person, this man? And so when you're hit with all of that, oh yeah, it was big tears. I'm talking the ugly kind. Like it was a lot that I had to purge. And it wasn't just that day, like that continued, because I'm the type of person, like when it comes to stuff, like I like to get stuff over with. You know what I mean? Like if you tell me like we going somewhere, like if me and you was playing something, like we going somewhere, I'm like, when we going? When's the trip? Because I'm ready to go. Like I don't plan it for like 6-8 months out. Like, no, I'm ready to go now. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't like the anticipatory feelings that come with waiting for something. And so that was in August. And I said, what you got in September? What do you have? And I was actually very specific. Even more so, this was late August. I said, can I do it after my birthday? I was very intentional about my birthday's in the middle of September. I said, I'll do anything in September, like get me after my birthday. Let's do this after. Let me have a chance to celebrate life, again, because that was important to me, to be able to feel like that still mattered, even though I was burdened with feelings and emotion. Like I still wanted to know that mattered, that I am here. So I chose the end of September. They gave me 2 weeks after my birthday. And I said, I'm still going to celebrate. I'm still going somewhere. I'm still going to do something. So grief, a lot of grief.
All matters of the heart, those are things that we experience. It looks different for everyone. Right. Situations are not the same, but yeah, that is truly a matter of the heart that we have to figure out, like, how am I going to cope with this? How am I going to move forward? Like, what is the next day, sometimes the next hour going to really look like for me? All of that
really goes to your work, honestly, and what you do. So I have to take a moment to plug you. I do watch the content that you put out, and it's so important. And I don't think I realized it was that important, because I think we just look at, now that I'm getting closer to the age where I used to think people were old, I start to realize that, okay, that's really not that old. You know what I mean? Like that's not being here that long, when you really think of it. So your work in putting that content out to get us to think more critically about the aging process is super, super important. So I'm really glad that you're taking the time to do that for us. So I have to thank you. with educating myself more on the aging process as it relates to what you asked, I mean, it was genetic for me. You know, it was that part was all genetic. That's why it occurred at such an early age for me. And that's why they were so taken aback that I was the person that's in their room. Had I had $1 for every appointment from that day forward, on every nurse, every practitioner who said, "Why are you in front of me?" I would be a very well-off person. Truly, for every nurse who took my blood and all the pre-op tests that you have to go through, why are you here? You know, like, it's you. Like, why is this young, healthy, no checked boxes, you know, gentleman in front of me, right? And that it's kind of I don't know, maybe that you could speak to this. It kind of almost is disrespectful, I think, to the aging process, right? That they just keep hammering that I'm too young for this to happen, when in actuality there's no age on illness. There's no age on being hurt. Right. You know, there's no age on life and death or expectancy. Maybe we just don't expect these things to happen if you don't check certain boxes. But what's in your DNA is already determined when you get here. You know, there are people who got together to bring you here, and that DNA goes back generations of people, and you don't know everything that's there. So that was a lot to undertake too, that it's not your fault. So then it kind of reignites the grieving process, that this isn't on you. This has nothing to do with you. You were doing all the right things. And then you're hearing that, but it doesn't help. Because then you start to buy into, I am too young to be in here, right? Like, I'm not your typical patient, like, or something of this degree. And I think it just reignites your whole process of every feel that you have, I guess, if that's the right way to say it, like, because it's a fluctuation of anger, confusion, questioning. Who can I dig up and cuss out? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who's not here anymore? That's the reason why this is happening to me. You know, I had so many unanswered questions that I realized really wasn't going to impact my outcome at this point. It wasn't even about that. It's about, okay, now that this has happened, what can you do? And now I guess I'm leaning more towards, this is probably a post-surgery thought. But it was a process of starting to wrap my mind around, this is happening. That's it. Like, this is happening. You're going to go through this. So we have to begin the acceptance process of your grief. Like, we have to begin that process to try to alleviate some element of stress. And that's where I think, even as a therapist and a provider, my own mental health was super tested. Super tested. All the techniques, all the things that I know to do to be more effective in taking care of myself. That stuff was so hard to make applicable when it's happening to you, something of that magnitude, and your life is kind of in the balance, in a sense. You know, you're submitting that to the, I guess, to other people to be good at what they do. Like, this is what you go to school to do, right? Like, people sit in front of me because they trust what I'm doing, right? They trust that we're building this relationship and this rapport. And when people sit in front of you, like, they trust what you know, like, they trust your knowledge base for all the things that you know. So now I have to be on the other end, and I'm not used to that. Like, I'm not used to that at all. Trusting other people to take care of me. So.
It's a wild thing when you gotta practice what you preach. You like, oh shoot, now I gotta, well, dang, you know, it's so easier to make, give suggestions and all of these things. When you're in the seat, it's like,
and it's a seat you don't want to be in. Wow. Like, it's not a good seat. It's like, I want to live, right, but I don't want to go through that in order to live. And so, yeah, it was. Like I said, being vulnerable, you know, we talk about that. And I think a part of the aging process is, I think, learning to be more vulnerable, that we're not always going to be the youngest version of ourselves.
Yeah.
You're just not. It doesn't work that way. And then I think what that really means to accept the life changes that come with that reality that you're living, and you're getting older, hopefully wiser in certain instances, but your body is going through changes daily. Like the aging process or moving through the growth and development of who you are as an adult changes every day.
Yeah. Now, you've had the surgery, you're recovering, and now it's like, we got to move forward. Like, how does that look for you now? And is there any type of like words of encouragement that you could give to, someone else that could be in this situation or in different situations, but, could still apply it to what they're dealing with?
Mm-hmm. So post recovery, which, to be fully transparent, I'm still in. I will say a positive plug for age is that, I wasn't 65 or 70 when this happened. So there's a lot of benefit to me being as young for the recovery process. It was a lot different for me. My process, like surgery is what it is. Like, I guess if that's like the best way I could say that, but being younger had its benefit that I healed and was able to do a little bit more at a more accelerated pace than maybe someone who has other organ or heart damage, and I had none. And I also didn't have other prerequisites that make me a viable heart candidate or heart patient other than the genetic piece. So that played a role in my recovery, which was really 4 months ago, which seemed wild to me. That's not really that long ago. But I think where I have been was once I like being in the hospital, I was in the hospital for like a week, and that was its own process because I've never been a patient before. And I think that's what really stuck out to me the most was that I had never been a patient before. And so all of these people coming in to check on you, and you're those first couple of weeks, you are like super tight and sore. Like they give you this heart pillow and you have to, everything hurts. Like you can't cough, sneeze, blow your nose the way you normally do. Like everything, you don't realize how much this part of your body controls everything that you do until you're in that position. So I think it was being vulnerable enough to be helped. That was learned. That was a process. Being helped, being vulnerable enough to realize I gotta be still. Like I gotta chill. Like my friends, my frat brothers, and everybody was planning to do stuff that was like coming up in like late October, November. I was like, oh, I'm going. I'm gonna be there. Yeah, I'm going. Because I couldn't allow the concept of me, you can't go to this because of this. So that was very hard to try to adapt to, that there were certain things that I couldn't do. I think I missed one, which I'm still proud of. I think I missed one of my daughter's basketball games. She does cheer, and that still broke my heart because I was like, I don't miss games. Like I don't miss stuff. You know what I mean? And so I think that part of the process is I learned is that you there's still a version of you, right, where you just can't do all the things you want to do. You got to learn to be this new version of who you are through your grief. Like through any transformative thing that you go through, you're going to be a new person. You have to learn to accept in your own way, obviously, what that means for you. And I say, get to know this new person because your whole mindset's different. Your feelings are different. Emotionally, I was different. And I had to really spend some time, which I really had nothing to do because I wasn't working. I wasn't seeing clients. I had nothing but time to get to know this new version of me. All the grief I had, how it was triggered, even thinking about death prior to losing my brother 5 years ago, also who had heart disease. That was a thing too. All of that, I had nothing but time. So it's like a benefit in a way, but then it's almost like I had too much time. Like I was in my head thinking about everything. And so fast forward in that clock, kind of getting back into my normal routines, maybe a little bit quicker than somebody else did or would, was helpful for me. And I think from an encouraging standpoint, ask questions, like ask the people who are here to help you understand your lineage, understand your DNA, ask questions. Be in tune with regular doctor's appointments. Do not take no, and don't take yes for an answer. I don't even know if anybody's ever said that, but don't just take a yes. Getting blood work done is cool and all of that. I think we need to start asking, say, I have a history of this, or there's something present in my family that is triggering a need for me to be more secure with my health. And just because you don't fit the bill, you don't fit the mold, you don't, have the right skin color, even for somebody who's predisposed to something genetically, ask questions. And you're the customer, like you're the patient, and your wellness is important, or should be important to you, that you got to be proactive and say, no, I'll get it anyway. Oh, well, insurance doesn't cover so and so. Well, I'll worry about that later. I'll worry about all of that later. Do this assessment for me. I did begin to ask questions to my mom about different things that I haven't considered before. So I will say that was important, a part of that lesson for me to learn. And, again, on the encouraging side of things is that, there is life after, a diagnosis. There is life after a procedure of that, even that severe of magnitude, and the support I think I gained from my real friends. When they say, I think you're part of one of your segments is real homies want to know, like, I know I got some real homies. I got some real friends. I got some very genuine people who made that process as light as it could be, in spite of where I was sitting. I mean, people who came to see me, and we're talking in the middle of a pandemic. I had people say, man, I'm put on my mask, I'll come in, or who made it took time out of their day to come see me in the hospital, who text, called, all of that stuff. Like, I got some real homies. So know who your real friends are. That's something I would say that's encouraging. Know who your real friends are at this age in your life. And be encouraged too that there is lifestyle changes to help you keep living. There are things that we can do. Black men and women are at a super high disadvantage of having heart disease. I think 44% one way, 48% the other way. That's still very close to half, for Black men and Black women, whether that's genetically predisposed, or whether that's something that accumulates over time. And there's so much research, Christina, that's not out there on us. We're the most misdiagnosed population that there is. There's not enough research on our lineage, because our lineage isn't organically made here. But they didn't do a lot of research on this, so there's a lot of things, and that also pivots into the mental health side of why we mistrust so much with our healthcare system and aging, and why I think silently. I think for people of color, I think we age silently. We don't want to know that our vision is getting bad. We don't want to know that our knee is hurt. Like, we don't want to know why. Nothing. Like, we don't trust those explanations. And so I know it's not always popular, but you got to go. You got to go to these doctors. You got to trust modern medicine. I know it's not always a comfort level, but it can be what saves your life. I can honestly tell you that the person who was operating on me, I wasn't as concerned with what he looked like in that moment. I was concerned with, do you know what you're doing?
Right.
Do you know what's going on with me? Can you help this person that's in front of you? Because I was fearful, and I was not apologetic about any of that. And so I don't know. That's kind of my general takeaway with where I am and what we have to be more mindful of, with our mental health, with our physical health, our emotional health. You're going to age with it, all of it. So you got to take care of all of it, because it doesn't stay the same, right? Like, life isn't the same as we age. And I think that's what your content speaks to. We're not the same version of ourselves. And I think there is a grieving process, because some of that does suck, right? Because we get comfortable. But there is life, and it can be a beautiful thing, I think, outside of those things that we go through, to make aging more of a seamless transition, not a painful transition.
Yeah. You touched on something I didn't even think about, was like how people age silently. Like, that was intense, because I agree. That mistrust, and then also not fully wanting to accept certain things that we know
Mhm.
aren't quite right, does kind of cause us to like, you seen, I'm sure you've seen the meme where Homer is backing up into the bushes.
Backing into the bushes. That's one of my favorite memes. Like I have that saved to my phone, and that pops up in my group chat all the time. I'm like,
That is all I kept seeing when you said that, because I was like, that is very common. And
back up.
yeah, but it's my hope that, you know, that can change. It's definitely not an overnight thing, because in some people,
No.
you know, stuck in their ways where they're not willing. But hopefully, more people will come from behind the bushes to really like address matters and really work on them or get help, you know, depending on what areas they are.
Well, you added something to that too, I think from a previous post that you had, and I think that started our conversation, like matters of the heart. And you had a quote that really grabbed me about heart condition. And I think when we think about our condition and friendship and all of these topics that you put content out on, it's all relevant. Like the relationships that I have with friends that are personal, romantic, all of those things impact heart condition. The stress that it puts on me. A lot of the people, you know, who come to see me, you know, for counseling purposes, sometimes the other person that may be causing that stress or putting them or shifting their energy in a position, they're not in the room. You know what I mean? But this is impacting their heart because it's stress. They can't sleep, they can't eat, they're not high functioning in certain social areas of their life, or, you know, all these things impact your body. Your heart beats different because it's stressed. You know what I mean? Like it's working for you, but it's at a harder rate. Like it's and that long term isn't healthy, you know, for you to go through. And so your friendships, you know, I think I hope we get rid of the word toxic, because I'm kind of over it. Like that's another topic.
So much. I use it here and there. I ain't gonna lie, right? But I do think now people kind of take away from like the true meaning.
That's what I'm saying. That's more so what I mean. It has its place, but all behavior, because it's not fitting to the mold of what you desire, isn't just toxic. Yeah. Let's also look at the origin of why you allow yourself to be treated this way, or why you're perpetuating a person to think it's okay. Let me say that, to treat you a certain way. And that has history, right? That has origin. And so I think we have to be able to explore these origins or birth to these ideas and these stressors, because stress in general is actually very normative. And what I try to educate my clients on is that it's the response to stress that makes it abnormal. That's really, you know, the root of what we go through. And so, you know, your friendships and the people you surround yourself with, sometimes, you know, my friends and I are guilty. You know, we look back a lot. So I think we're all sort of having our own individual challenges. Men, my Black men, with getting older. You know, I'm not in the club that doesn't have less hair. I still have all mine. But I know some brothers that's struggling, and that's hard. If you look back at a picture of yourself where that hairline was full, that shape up was super nice, that's hard, because you don't look like that anymore. And you might have been real favorable to that guy, or those, you know, women, you know, pre-children, post-children, whatever. There's a natural, how do I say, weight gain that happens as you get older. And a lot of people don't know that you just naturally carry more weight as you get older. So waists aren't always as snatched and tight, and everything don't sit the way you want it to, like in certain clothes. And it's like, but wait, you know, I don't like that, you know. And so I think we're exercising our bodies and doing all these things to look a certain way, whereas I think that's cool, but you also got to exercise your mind too and stretch that level of comfort to say, okay, this is who I am in my 30s. I don't have a 25-year-old body anymore.
Is not a 25-year-old.
It's not, and that doesn't make it bad though, right? Like, but people are, and again, I'm not saying this as if I've never had my moments of, being subconsciously uncomfortable with change, but I think, and I'm aware of it, and I think a lot of us are aging, like I said, silently because we're not comfortable with the change. We're not being open to embracing. It just means maybe you got to stretch before you go hoop. Like you can't just get off the couch and go play.
Right.
I don't know.
Gotta make some modifications.
Modifications. You gotta make.
I used to do it this way. I can't do it like that no more. I can still do it, but now I know there's some extra things that I gotta have prior to, right? So that's what it is. Modifications and kind of adjusting to what your new limits are.
The new limits, yeah. Introduce yourself to this new person that's getting better with age, with through these modifications and changes. And I think understanding that it's okay to not be okay with it. And it's not like you just there's a gray hair, that's what's up. No, maybe that's not what you want, but I think it's, well, what does that mean? I think that's kind of like, part of the conversations we got to start having with our friends, you with your girlfriends and, me with my guys. And
I'm glad that you really touched on a lot of different things that kind of like ties into how the aging process is more than just like turning a year older. It's so much more than that. And I feel like you've really like touched on multiple areas or multiple aspects of how the aging process is. And I like how you tied in the mental health piece, because that's so important. And that is truly like the matter of the heart and how we are dealing with things mentally.
No separation.
No.
That's what I learned. There's no separation. If the wheel of wellness, I guess you can say, there's like several areas of wellness. And if one thing is off balance, it's a team effort. You know what I mean? And if one thing is out of sync, the other areas will certainly feel that. Mental health, that's my area, and I didn't realize where that and aging went together per se. And now you've shown me a door where those two things are like, they go together. That impacts how I feel about myself, my self-confidence, my self-esteem. And that's my wellness, how I feel about myself, or the stress that I develop as I think different stressors, now that we are older, they're different. Like life events are a lot different now that we're older. We're not old, but we're older. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so that your stressors are different. It's not turning in an assignment, at midnight on Blackboard anymore. That was like big stress at 19. Now it's mortgages and how that doesn't impact the way we age. If you stress hard, you see people, they say, man, they look like they're stressed.
Well, this was good. I appreciate you. I am glad that, you're still here, a survivor, still moving forward. I know, look at God. He's just awesome. But I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that,
Thank you. Thank you.
Sharing your story and your experience professionally and personally. So I really appreciate you. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I mean, I could always add more stuff, but no, really, I'm just, I'm thankful for this platform. I'm thankful for your platform. I think this is the second time we've been able to kind of take our worlds and put them together. So I'm pretty sure, hopefully there'll be a third time and a fourth, or whatever it takes to continue to provide platforms for our people. For all people. I think there's a message that everyone can take. I'm just, being realistic. I want our people, because we listen a little bit less. I think we be looking for the hot words and the hot takes. And this isn't that. This is education. This is something you got to really dive into. So I'm thankful for your platform and what you're doing. Please keep doing what you're doing. Keep educating us on this process, because now we're in it. We don't think about it at 15, but now we're there. That sore knee, that vision, you squint a little bit, whatever it is, there's change, right? We're all changing and growing beings. And I think people stop thinking of themselves as a growing being because they've hit a certain age, and that's not the way it works. Because if that was the case, you'd be 30 twice. That way you can say you've been there before, and it doesn't work that way. Every age, every area of your age is different. So thank you for giving us this platform and teaching us and educating us on what we need to know as we do that healthily, safely, and successfully.
It's my pleasure. I enjoy it now. I hope you all enjoyed hearing from Brandon as much as I did. It was a great conversation. I'm so appreciative of Brandon and his time. And I hope that you're able to jot down a few things that he shared